So to provide us a deeper perspective on clean diesel here in the U.S., let me introduce Alan Schaefer, the Executive Director of the Diesel Technology Forum, to tell you more. Alan?
Thank you very much, Jim. There we are. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the folks at Volkswagen for having me here today. And I'd like to congratulate them on this really historic occasion that we have a 50-state clean diesel car available for everyone, and we're doing it here in California. I think that says a lot. A quick word about the Diesel Forum for those of you who are not familiar. We are a not-for-profit trade professional association. We represent 32 leaders in clean diesel technology, including Volkswagen, as well as other manufacturers, fuel refiners, and folks that make emissions control technology equipment. And you can learn more about us at www.dieselforum.org. I'm here today with a very simple message. The time for clean diesel is now, and I hope to just share with you a few thoughts about why we're excited about the future for diesel. I have to joke about this a little bit. I've been doing this since 2000, and for the first 7 years we were selling a lot of hope. And now we're going to be selling a lot of cars, and that's a great feeling because this technology is certainly come of age, and America is ready for clean diesel because of the reasons here. Low emissions, fuel efficiency, the unique value proposition of diesel, which you're going to learn a lot more about today. So let me just get right to it. Why we think the time is right for diesel comes from three basic things. First of all, we have a very great mindset right now out there in the population. I'm going to share with you some new public opinion research that we just did at the forum to help understand what's in the hearts and minds of consumers out there. Most importantly, the second bullet here is the promise of clean diesel, which we've been talking about for 5, 6, 7 years now, is actually being delivered. We have cleaner fuel available, and now the cars are here as well. And I think the third major point is that clean diesel can be a competitive choice for consumers in the future going forward. Let me first share with you a little bit about our public opinion research survey. This was done in July. This is your standard 1,000-person telephone poll with an oversample here in California. This was done by our folks at Yankelovich Partners, and they assured me they didn't call anyone during dinner time, so I'm happy about that. And we asked them a range of questions about their general energy and environmental attitudes and awareness. And we asked them also what they thought about diesel. And what I'm going to show you this morning is just a snippet of that. And some of you may have participated on our webinar last week where we had the researcher, Hal Quinley, and another researcher, Kevin McMahon from Martech Group, present some of this information I'll show later as well. This is all available on our website in addition to what you're going to see here today. What are the highlights? Well, the highlights are that people have a high recognition about the environment right now. They want to take personal responsibility for doing something good for this planet. And in California, especially, we're seeing some differentiation. Maybe a little less here. 79% are concerned about fuel prices. I guess maybe because the fuel prices have been high in California for so long. But the number that really shocked us was 86% of people very concerned about fuel prices, and 86% will buy a more fuel-efficient car. So that says the population is really thinking about what kind of vehicle they're going to buy, and they want something that maybe first on the list is fuel efficiency, and that's great news for the diesel. There's also a little differentiation about age group here, where the younger folks tend to be thinking more about performance, and the older folks thinking more about the pocketbook, and that's something that we probably would expect. Again, the full research that's available is on our website, and you can see more of that there. Just two quick snapshots looking a little further. When we asked people which of the following is most important reason for buying a fuel-efficient vehicle, folks were stressing the idea of reducing energy dependence and the cost of fuel. Californians were a little bit more tuned into greenhouse gas emissions. 36% of those picked that as the top reason. Not surprising, since the discussion about climate change and greenhouses is at the highest level here in California. And when we ask folks directly about diesel, what do you think about diesel in the last 5 years? About half of Americans think diesel has gotten better for the environment. And that's really good news because, as we all know, it has gotten a lot better with cleaner fuel and some of the new advanced emissions control technology. And about a third of folks feel like it's stayed the same, and that's okay too. We got some positive results and people thinking about clean diesel. So what do we want to take a look now at what the market potential could be for these cars, and I'll start off by saying we're not a forecasting group. Others do forecasting. We're going to share with you some of our perspectives about that and what factors might move the market one direction or another. First of all, take a quick look at where we've been. As you all know, diesel's about 3%, 3.3% of the overall vehicle registrations in the U.S., but it's been a growth trend. The majority of this growth has been in the heavy-duty pickup world, and that's predominantly because there weren't many other choices, really, for the last 6 or 7 years. One of the things we did see is when there was a choice, people could line up 2 vehicles, one being gasoline, one being diesel. 43% of those picked the diesel. And these were folks that were, in the case of the pickup trucks, paying a pretty hefty premium along the way for the value of diesel. So we look at this growth and say, well, you know, folks have demonstrated with their pocketbook that diesel is a valuable technology and they're buying more of it every year. Looking at some of the forecasts, and I'd like to share with you, this is some research that was done by our researcher, the Martech group in Detroit. And they've done a number of forecasts looking at talking to folks like you and talking to folks in industry about what they think about where this diesel market might be headed. And this is a 2007 long-range forecasting stuff. In the EIA forecast, the Energy Information Administration, they're predicting it's going to take decades, really, to get to 9 or 10% of the U.S. market for diesel. And automotive press participants, perhaps some of you in this room participated in this survey, were a bit more optimistic than that, suggesting a 15% share by 2015, 23% maybe by 2020. And those in industry, OEMs and suppliers and others that were surveyed, you know, again had a pretty bullish outlook on the future for diesel. So any way you slice these numbers, they're going up. There will be more diesel cars on the road in the not too distant future. And people ask us all the time, what are the things that will make diesel a success in the U.S. market or a challenge for diesel? The factors are on the left, and what we think about those are on the right. First of all, it's general awareness of consumers, and this awareness has been building, and it's hard to build without products, and some of the new products coming out like the TDI, Jetta, are going to go a long ways to raising that awareness to a very high level. And with more choices coming, it will all feed each other. There's also a motivation and willingness to buy diesel, as I've shown in some of the public opinion research slides. There are tax credits available. You'll hear more about those. And I think the consumer value proposition, when you really look at the whole package for diesel, it's a technology that will deliver. And I think that's very important for consumers that might be looking at things a little bit differently now with the economy the way it is and fuel prices the way they are. Well, it's hard to put a spin on fuel prices, but this is the best I could come up with, since I know a lot of you in this room, and myself included, spend a lot of time in airplanes. So let me just offer you a quick perspective about what we're seeing and thinking about that. You know, currently things are on a downward slide. We're happy about that. Diesel prices are down about 70 cents in the last 8 weeks, and that's still $1.13 a gallon more than it was a year ago. And the split between diesel and gasoline prices as of Monday of this week is 58 cents more per gallon, and that's a national average according to EIA. And as you all know, diesel fuel follows the price of crude. And you know, if we set away hurricanes for a little bit and assume we've got some relative stability returning to the oil market, you know, I think there's a view that there's going to be a gradual softening and dropping of crude prices. Indeed, we've seen that in the previous weeks leading up to this last little bout of hurricane madness. And EIA, just for a reference case, projected the 2009 fuel price of being $4.26 a gallon. That's next year for diesel. This year they were projecting $4.09. So they were off a little bit, as they often are, but that's what we point to in terms of hanging our hat on. What about the future, though? And I think that's really the most important point. Where is diesel fuel going from this point? And under any scenario, gasoline consumption in the U.S. has to decline because of corporate average fuel economy requirements, the new renewable fuel mandates, and the economic conditions. We've already seen, as many of you have reported, that consumers have had the greatest drop in purchasing gasoline in the last short period of time than they've had almost in history. So people are definitely using less gasoline and less energy these days. And thinking about the future of diesel in a more specific way, since November of last year, there have been no fewer than 7 refineries that have announced very specific expansions, new capacity, new investments to make ultra-low sulfur and distillate products. And these range from the Marathon announcement back in November of last year on through the rest of this year, including Shell, which has the U.S.'s largest refinery in Port Arthur, which is ramping up, be adding more diesel fuel capacity there. So the good news is the oil industry is responding to some of this growing demand for distillate globally as well as here in the U.S. So more fuel is coming. And one of the things that folks have mentioned as might be a barrier to more diesel acceptance in the U.S. is the availability of the fuel. And recent research we've done shows it's available about 42% of all stations nationwide. California, the Energy Commission says 50% of all service stations have a diesel pump today. And for those of you who aren't a daily diesel driver like I am, you just forget the last time you filled up. I can't remember the last time I put fuel in. I have to go back and look at my receipts. You have a long-range vehicle, it really has a different mindset with you. So we're excited about that. We also have some information showing the density of fuel stations around major metropolitan areas, which is represented in that map in the background. And diesel is available, and this happens to be the Baltimore-Washington metro area where we're based. I think the other feature that might affect consumers thinking about diesel over other technologies is what does it really deliver? And we saw the perfect example of this last year when EPA went through their revision on their fuel economy testing procedures and the new window sticker. And as a result of that, where they factored in different driving speeds and looked at cold start and other things, gasoline vehicle ratings dropped. Hybrids dropped dramatically, of course, because of the cycle effect. But guess what? As a category, diesel vehicles increased. So what did that tell us? It told us that diesel drivers were getting better than the window sticker than they were projected to get. So I think that says a lot for the technology, and that's only going to get better. The other aspect of why diesel is going to be a success in the U.S. market is residual value. When you think about the long-term ownership experience, we looked at, as part of our research with the Martech group, what was the resale value, and this is from Manheim Auto Auctions. This is real data, looking at 100,000 miles for cars and trucks at 150,000 miles. And we saw pretty substantial payback in terms of higher resale value over the gasoline, and this is over the standard gasoline engine for these vehicles. So the big pickup trucks picking up 4, 15, 17% over their gasoline counterparts. The Jetta coming in at 25% higher resale value than a comparable gasoline one. And the Prius actually lost value as compared to a Camry, which was the only thing that could be compared apples to apples. So we can see the resale value of diesels, and Jim had some great historical pictures there, prove that the market is still excited about not only new diesels, but also old diesels. We also, the last part of my presentation, want to focus on the future, and we asked our friends at Martech to look at the question about where could diesel possibly go in the U.S. from a market perspective. We saw the forecast that others have done. But here we looked at what products have been announced or what have been rumored to be announced and are reasonably available in other places in the world. This is as of April of this year. And it works out to be about 30 models that have a diesel engine available today, or one's been announced, or one could be reasonably expected in the next few years. As a group, this category of cars and light trucks make up about 24% of the entire U.S. light-duty vehicle fleet in 2007 in terms of sales. It's about 3.2 million vehicles. So imagine that we had another engine choice in all these different vehicles. What could that possibly mean? First of all, you have to understand the logic behind this research that was done. When people buy a diesel engine, they're going through a calculation in their brain about why they want a diesel. Part of that is to get better performance, and they're getting more torque for their investment. And that means they're stepping up over an optional gasoline engine. In the pie chart in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that for those vehicles I just showed you in 2007, that list of 30 cars, 75% of those were sold with the standard gasoline engine, and only 25% were sold with the optional gasoline engine, probably a V6 in some cases. The diesel engine option in those vehicles, folks that bought the gas option paid more for it and got less fuel economy. You can see that they lost about 3 miles per gallon in fuel efficiency by buying the bigger gasoline engine. The diesel will provide that category of vehicles about 11 mile per gallon increase in fuel efficiency, more torque performance, as well as a better driving experience relative to CO2. So we asked them also then to look at the penetration scenarios, sort of the what ifs, and what if that portion of folks that bought the standard gasoline engine decided to buy the diesel? Again, going back to those 30 vehicles that we just showed in the slide. Let's take a look at 3 scenarios. 10% penetration of diesel getting into that optional gasoline engine market, 20% and a 40% option. And these are the kind of benefits that society could achieve in terms of fuel savings and CO2 benefits if people had the choice of buying the diesel engine over that gasoline optional engine. And the green is 40%, and the gray is 20%, and the blue is 10% of the optional engine market that went to a diesel option. So there are lots of benefits to be had there. About 2.3 billion gallons saved of fuel in the biggest 40% penetration scenario. And then we asked the question, well, what if the entire fleet? Now that was passenger cars. This is reflecting all vehicles. So we've got light trucks blended in here as well. And what would that mean? And that would mean about saving us 17 billion gallons of fuel over the useful life of the vehicle. And that's what does that really mean? Put it in perspective this way. It has a relationship with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Sorry. It gives us about 20 months worth of Venezuelan imports, and also would provide us enough fuel to power all of California's vehicles for 425 days. So that savings that could be achieved from that diesel penetration is substantial. And of course, there's the $36 billion back into the pocketbooks of the diesel owners. So 17 billion gallon savings could be significant for consumers and the economy as well as the environment. So the full range of this research is available on our website, and we'd be happy to make our researcher available for any questions you might have as well. Just to summarize things that are very important assessments about diesel, it is still the most energy efficient internal combustion engine out there. We're at a milestone now. We're competitive with gasoline from an emissions perspective. We've got fuel in place. It's available. We can use renewable diesel fuels in these vehicles as well. And the real ownership value is a proven feature. So we think it's time for clean diesel in the U.S., and I think the Volkswagen Jetta TDI is going to be the first example of that, and we know it's going to be a huge success. So I want to thank the folks at Volkswagen again for having me, and thank all of you for your attention.